Oh, okay. Thanks for coming.
Chris is on his way. He's like 2-3 minutes out.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, we'll call this meeting to order and roll call ourselves in.
Gibbon here.
Blanchard here, Raymond here. Okay, reading of the IDA mission statement.
So I'll talk more about this later on in my report, but this is something that I learned at one of the conferences I just was at for IDA. And this is something a lot of IDAs are starting to incorporate. So this is something we'll start to do at our meetings, is like making sure everybody who's attending and watching and we're reminded of what our mission is. So I'll go ahead and read it. Our mission is to promote, develop, encourage, and assist in the acquiring, construction, reconstruction, improving, maintaining, equipping, and furnishing industrial manufacturing, warehousing, commercial, research, and recreational facilities, including industrial pollution control facilities, educational or cultural facilities, railroad facilities, and continuing care retirement communities. To provide financial assistance and thereby advance the job opportunities, health, general prosperity, and economic welfare of the people of the county of Chenango, and to improve their recreation opportunities, prosperity, and standard of living. And we approve this every year, and it was last approved at our annual meeting in March.
Okay, thank you. Approval of the minutes of the September 15th, 2021 regular meeting. Any questions, additions?
I make a motion to approve.
Zieno, sir.
Okay, we'll vote.
Zieno, aye.
Gibbon.
Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye. Financial report?
Okay. So on the statement of financial position, accounts receivable is noted on page 2, and the only item waiting is still the payment from the Norwich Chenango solar project. We have rebilled them after we got corrected address information, so we should be seeing those monies coming in soon. Number 2 notes the financing lease that we have with Cascoon on the rail processing in Bainbridge. Our current assets sit at $794,171.21. We do have a total property and equipment valued at $627,872.06, with a total assets of just over $1.4 million. Under our liability and fund balance, the accounts payable is on page 3, and I'll go over that with you in just a moment. We do have item number 6 is the prepaid rental income. So that is for our Incubator Building down at the airport. That's where that is. We do have a fund balance of just over $1.3 million. Our total liability and fund balance right now sit at just over $1.4 million. Page 2 is age receivables, which we just discussed. On page 3, under accounts age payables, we have a couple of legal bills that are ours. The first one is our internal legal bill. We do have the airport utilities. Just a reminder that these are going to be reimbursed to us, so you'll continue to see that we're paying expenses related to the building that we own at the airport, but those will be reimbursed back from our leaseholders. And then the public hearing bill for the Evening Sun, and again, we do pay it out initially, but it's reimbursed to us as part of the project when we finally close that project. Under statement of activities, things are looking really well. Actually, Randy and I just met yesterday about our 2022 budget. So on item number 1 is under the airport building rents, and we have some activity in there. Again, we didn't budget for that because we didn't know last fall we'd have a leaser. So we'll continue to see that number rise. The highlighted section, pilot projects and fees. Most of those have had activity. The only one that we have not closed yet is the Coventry project, but all those are noted, the ones that are billed out regularly, and that list has expanded as we've closed more and more pilots. Our total revenues right now, year-to-date actual, are $169,248.13. I would like you to note that we are currently over budget. So I think as we're coming into the fourth quarter, the fact that our revenues have exceeded what we expected is a good sign. We're having a good year, which I know in past years we've not always come out ahead of the game so far early. So under expenditures, I just want to note a couple of the places where it looks a little where we were worse than budget. Again, Randy and I took a look at our expenses for the year. We're trying to make sure in 2022 that the expenses align with what we think we're going to be paying. So we talked about internal things that we're going to be purchasing and buying and making sure that those items are noted. Good morning, Mike. We do the best we can to project it a year ahead of time, but, nothing is too off, too outside of the budgeted line, but that's why some of those items are just a little over budget. So we'll make those adjustments as we finalize the 2022 budget. On the last page of the statement, again, year-to-date actual for expenditures, we're under where we thought our expenses would be. And we actually are showing a net revenue of $45,000 at this point for the year, as we head into Q4. So overall, a good year, and I think we've done a good job keeping our expenses in line and bringing in revenue, and getting a leaser over at the building has really helped us as well.
Any questions on the financial report? I have a motion to accept the report.
Gibbon will make a motion. to approve.
Blanchard will second.
We'll vote.
Zieno, aye.
Gibbon, aye.
Khoury, aye. Blanchard, aye.
Raymond, aye. Bills and invoices, any issues there?
Nope, everything is, we noted all the ones in the account payable, so unless there's any questions.
The other question, the one for the development Chenango Corporation, that's just, we're making a double, is it August, September?
Yeah, there's something about when the bill came in and when we paid it, it got missed the last month, but yeah. Good catch.
Okay, motion to approve bills and invoices.
So moved.
A second.
We'll vote.
Zieno, aye.
Gibbon, aye.
Khoury, aye. Blanchard, aye.
Raymond, aye.
Randy, when the checks come around, can you provide the second signature as treasurer for the one, since mine's not here? Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, your report?
Yeah, so again, this is something else. So I had a really great session at the New York State Economic Development Council meeting in Cooperstown at the end of September. If you did not see, we were given one of the awards. Every economic development and IDA agency in the state were given the Economic Developer of the Year award from the council. This was a way to signify and, basically celebrate the work that we all did during COVID. So it was a really wonderful surprise. That was a really great opening night award that we all received. So we can all take some pride that Chenango County and our agency was one of the ones that were noted during that event. I went to some really great trainings though about IDA management in general, things that are up and coming, things that, coming down from the state. There's been a lot of work happening about the bringing up to current some of our, like what the state says we can and can't do in terms of an IDA. If you look at the bylaws from the state through the ABO, it says things like, IDs exist to create racetracks. When's the last time like a racetrack was created? It's really out of date and out of touch with what current IDAs are doing around the state. So there's been a lot of work on trying to bring that up to a level of the activity that IDAs are really doing at this point. And some of the training sessions I went to were about, the transparency and the openness and what an IDA does and how they work with your LDC. And so from that, you'll see some changes to today's agenda, and that's why I made some of these changes, such as the executive director report. At all the other boards under Commerce Chenango, I always report on what the IDA is doing, but I realize I don't report to you about what we're doing on the DCC side of things, and I should, because the LDC is part of the IDA. And that's what DCC is. So I thought it would be good to just give you a quick summary and update of what's happening on the Development Chenango side of the house, so that you're all aware and we have transparency between the organizations. So just real quick on that front, so I did attend the New York State Economic Development Conference in Cooperstown, and then a week later I went to the International Economic Development Conference in Nashville, and that was also a really great few days, lots of intense. It was time definitely well spent learning what some of the other IDA organizations around the country are doing and how they're using economic development to help their communities. So really appreciated the opportunity to go back to conferences again and see people and get some of that extra education. On the DCC side of things, we did present the Downtown Revitalization Initiative, the DRI. We applied for that. We submitted our application back in September. On my way back from Nashville, I found out that Wednesday evening that we were selected and moved forward to the next round, and we were given a week to prepare our presentation. So last Wednesday, we prepared our presentation, we gave it to the regional council and some members from the state, and now we're waiting to see if we are one of the winners. It's pretty exciting. It's going to be pretty transformative for downtown Norwich if we're able to get this $10 million grant. Does anybody have any questions about the DRI? I know I talk about it a lot, but I don't think I've talked with you specifically about the DRI. Those of you on planning know about it, but any questions? Okay. We've had a pretty robust and busy loan portfolio under DCC. So our LDC is the way that we can give loans to help businesses get going. We have an ag loan fund, we have a business loan fund. We've given out now over $550,000 in grant and loans in the last year and a half. We just did another one last week to the person who's reopening Jerry's in Bainbridge. We have 2 more loans that the finance committee is looking at on Monday. One is for a brewery and one is for an ag-related project. So I like to let you know that too, because the money is going locally, it's staying in the county, we're helping businesses grow and expand and open, and we should be really proud of that. And then the hotel project is the other big thing that DCC is working on. And again, those of you in planning know a little bit more about this. We did close on the building across the street at 14 to 16 South Broad. And we have doing a lot of behind the scenes work in terms of talking to developers who are interested in coming to turn that building into a boutique hotel. We're working on a campaign. We're going to try to raise about $1 million to do some of the updates and work that we need to do to the building. But that project is moving forward and there's been quite a bit of excitement about it. I've had 3 different developers contact me about possibly being involved. So that's a good sign. And that's it on the DCC side. And then just a couple other updates for you to be aware of. Commerce Chenango is in the final, I'd say, month or 2 of our strategic plan. I did make sure you had a copy of it in your packet. Again, this encompasses everything that happens, in this organization. We have a lot of different, arms out there, and a lot of the work that we do is economic development related. It's workforce development, entrepreneurial support, anything we do to help businesses and attract people to the area. That's a big part of what IDs exist for. So I wanted to make sure that you had a glimpse of what we're looking at. Once we have this a little more polished up, I would like to do more of a formal presentation to this board about what that strategic plan looks like and just get your input on it. So maybe at next month's meeting, we can take a few minutes and go into more detail about the strategic plan. And we held our annual, now second annual, I can say annual because we've done it twice, legislative breakfast last week at the Silo Restaurant in Green. It was very well attended. We had about 60 attendees. We had Senator Oberacker attended, Assemblyman Angelino attended, and Assemblyman Lamont were there, as well as Ryan Silva from the New York State Economic Development Council and Ken Poklansky, I'm not going to say it right, from the Business Council of New York. Really great discussion. It was a wonderful event. A lot of people that attended told us how much they appreciated having that event. So we'll continue to do that and have opportunities for us to liaison with our elected officials. And that is all on my report, unless you have any questions. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, old business.
Yes, thank you. So just a few things regarding, we're in the final phase here of the Norbit project. We have had our public hearing. Last month, we did the agency agreement and inducement agreement. So today is the final step, which gives us the ability to actually move forward and close this project. So part of that is going over a cost benefit analysis with you. So I just want to make sure that we talk about what the financial assistance is that we're giving them. And once I go over that with you, we have to approve the seeker resolution. And then we approve the final authorizing resolution. So there's one seeker for both projects. Remember, there's 2 sites, site 2 and site 3, which is confusing that there's no site 1. There is no site 1. So we'll have a seeker resolution for site 2 and site 3, which is in your packet. And then we have the final authorizing resolution, which is 2 separate resolutions, one for site 2 and one for site 3. And then after that, we'll go ahead and start moving forward with our attorneys to actually close the project, and so they can get started on their project over there. So the sales tax exemption that we are giving them is $174,736. They're creating 50 to 70 new jobs, mostly through the construction phase. The estimated payroll for the construction jobs is between $40,000 and $60,000 each. The new number of part-time jobs outside of construction are 4. We are looking at an estimated annual payroll of full and part-time jobs created by this project in year 1 of anywhere from $10,000 to $55,000. And the private funds that are being invested, the equity in the project is $6.7 million. So we had a public hearing, the community at large is supportive of the project. I think we all were pretty impressed with Norbit and how they were moving forward with, addressing the concerns and needs of the community. And really all that's left for us to do is to approve the seeker and the final authorizing resolution. So when you are ready, unless you have any more questions about the project.
So we should approve those right now?
Yeah, so if you want to do a motion to approve the motion to approve the seeker resolution for Site 2 and Site 3 is the first one.
Okay. Can I get a motion to that effect?
So moved by Khoury, that the seeker is accepted.
Gibbon a second.
Okay, discussion, if none, we'll vote.
Zieno, aye.
Gibbon, aye.
Khoury, aye. Blanchard, aye.
Raymond, aye.
And so now you will do 2 separate resolutions, a motion to approve the final authorizing resolution for Site 2 and vote on it, and then do it again for Site 3.
Okay, so a motion for Site 2?
So moved by Khoury.
Little second.
A vote?
Zieno, aye.
Gibbon, aye.
Khoury, aye. Blanchard, aye.
Raymond, aye. And a motion for Site 3?
I'll make a motion.
Gibbon a second.
We'll vote?
Zieno, aye.
Gibbon, aye.
Khoury, aye. Blanchard, aye.
Raymond, aye.
Thank you. I know they do want to try to close fairly quickly, so I'll be in touch as we move forward with the closing documents and all of that. Thank you.
I just got a question, would we need me to sign?
Yes, thank you. Randy and Pete, if you could just wait after to sign the documents with Carrie Ann for all of the resolutions that we're going to pass today.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you want me to just keep going, Pete?
I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No, that's fine. You're doing a great job. Okay, so next we have the pilot application for the Hybrid Wind Project in Guilford. You all received the letter that we received from the Guilford Coalition regarding some additional questions and concerns that they had. In addition, I did send that to our folks over with the project, Chris and his team, and they did supply some responses in addition to responses from the meeting that we had last month. I did ask them if they wanted to go ahead and just make a few comments regarding the letter and the questions you had at the last meeting. We do have a public hearing set for next October 27th at 6 o'clock. We do encourage board members to attend. We will be streaming it live, so if you're unable to attend, it's a time for people they have letters we've been receiving. People have a chance to come in. Each person has about 5 minutes to make a statement, either for or against. The public hearing is not, for those of you who have not been before, it's not a back and forth engagement session. It's really just a chance for someone to come in and make a statement. I know some of you are on the county board, so you're familiar with this process. But that's going to begin at 6 o'clock in the town of Guilford in the town hall. So after Chris and his team answer the questions related to the letter and the last couple of questions you had, the next step of this is the inducement agreement and agency agreement. Again, this is not, what we just did for Norbit was the final authorizing resolution. That's like the final step to approve the pilot. This inducement agreement and agency agreement is just the next step in the process. We still have the public hearing. And then in November, we would look to possibly approve the final authorizing resolution pending any additional questions you might have. And again, I want to remind you with all of our pilot projects, we are not approving of a project or the reason for a project. Randy and I spoke about this yesterday. We're approving the financial incentive for the project. And I know sometimes that can get a little confusing of what our role is with that, but I think so far you all understand that. So Chris, do you and your team want to make any statement? Yeah, come on.
Mind if I sit?
Yes, go
Okay. When it's awkward to be the only person standing.
Or we can all stand.
Thanks for having me here again today. So again, Chris Gant from Northland Power, the developer behind the project. I think it's worth, before I get into this, I think the letter from the opposition group addressed like who we are. So I just wanted to reiterate who Northland Power is. We are based in Toronto, right? But we own and operate power plants for the long term. We do not, this company is not in the business of developing things and flipping them. The track record of the company is pretty clear. We've built 4 wind facilities in Quebec and Ontario and a number of solar facilities. 10 plus years ago, those facilities remain in operation. They remain under the ownership of Northland Power, and the company continues to operate them. And so the company derives value from operating those facilities for the long term. When the company decided to make a move, and I guess, maybe out of the geographic value, some of the assets that the company's built in New York State are actually closer to Toronto than some of their Canadian assets, just by way of geography. But this project falls in the same bucket. Northland Power wants to expand into New York State, partly because Ontario and New York are so close together geographically, and there's a sharing of electricity between those 2 areas. It's one of many reasons. And so the plan for this project, just as with the Bluestone project in Broome and the other project they acquired in Western New York, is to own and operate these projects for the long term and develop additional solar projects as well across the state. So I'm here today just to, I think, address one particular question we received at the last meeting, and then also touch on some of the other letter. Khoury messaged me earlier this week or last week and just said, hey, is there any way you could kind of fill in some of these TBDs and blanks or further explain them in your application? So the letter sought to do that. But first off, I think at the last meeting was asked how much taxes are currently being paid on the land that you plan to develop into the project. And, important to note, we have parcels under lease that will host roads and collection lines and wind turbines. And then we also have parcels that are adjacent to the project where landowners have signed agreements with us to be good neighbors. And essentially what we do is it's an easement. We're paying them for the life of the project, and they're benefiting from that. And in exchange, they agree to, not contest the project and to generally work with the project and be quote unquote good neighbors. So the total number of parcels for both leases and good neighbor agreements is 143 parcels. And I count 96 unique landowners among those. Again, maybe something else had a bit of a difference of opinion with the opposition group. There's landowners who will stand to benefit from this project directly in terms of payments over the life of the project. On those 143 parcels, current land taxes in 2020 were a little over $233,000. What we're proposing here in this pilot and HCA in the application would be to, nothing would happen to those taxes. They would continue to be paid. We would just add an additional $416,000 for the host community agreement and just under $400,000 for the pilot in its first year. And so that total taxes paid in Chenango County would increase from about $233,000 to $1,045,000. So a 447% increase, as I pointed out in the letter. So I don't know if anyone had any questions about that. I just want to address that because it was brought up the last meeting. Okay. Another one that was kind of brought up both in the opposition group's letter and was also kind of TBD in the application is the amount of money and materials and suppliers we expect to procure directly from Chenango County. This is a harder one. As I explained, I think at the last meeting, we will select an EPC contractor to do this job for us, basically to deliver the project at the price that we agree on. And it's up to that project contractor to procure as needed to meet the scope of the job. But I do, the contractor is also kind of boxed in on a couple other ways. Our agreement with NYSERDA to sell the energy requires us to purchase a significant portion of the non-turbine costs on this project from New York State. There's a pretty hefty in-state requirement. And in addition to that, this project has signed agreements, labor agreements with Labor is Local 785, and IBEW 325, both out of the Binghamton area, but both labor unions hold a large number of, I know this from talking to the guys in Blueston site, do have a lot of members actually coming down from Afton and other parts of Chenango County. So it's both those locals draw from a large county area within this area. So that is, if the Bluestone project is an example, we would expect a meaningful portion of the workers, if not a majority, to be union labor. As far as local procurement in terms of local businesses, all I can say is we gotta look at the Bluestone, like despite whatever the opposition group says in their letter, that's the best comparison you'll ever find. It's much better than me sitting here and having some consultant or economist provide some forecast to you what this will do. That project is almost identical in size, very similar terrain. We plan to operate the two projects together, and they will have the same wind turbine built on the site. So in terms of as a comparison, it doesn't get better than that. At that project, we have procured 100% of our aggregate and building materials from within a few miles of the project site. We have procured 100% of the public road upgrades, which is now, I think we're closing in on about $1 million of investment in public roads, have been both local companies built directly from the towns of Sanford and Windsor. So again, within a few miles of the site. Similarly, the fuel we procure on site, we use vast quantities of diesel fuel. It's all procured from fuel suppliers there within a few miles. And I said, when I added it up, I looked at all of the kind of the local businesses that we have directly procured from, and that includes equipment rental and the items I mentioned, plus heavy equipment rental. And then in the case of the Bluestone project, we have had an electrical contractor that's actually based in Chenango County as a prime contractor on that job. And in total, we've awarded contracts worth millions and millions of dollars to local suppliers. So I do want to emphasize that I can't sit up here and dictate to an EPC contractor who their supplier should be. That's not how these jobs are built, but that's a good example of how it would work out in this project.
Could you just define EPC?
Yeah, sorry, engineering, procurement, construction contractor. So basically the way this project works, as with a lot of large construction, not a lot, but some large construction projects, we would hire the EPC contractor to complete the final engineering and then procure a lot of the things like the cabling, the specialized cabling that's in the project, the rebar, the specific type of aggregate and stone. It would be up to them to find the local quarry in Chenango that could supply the proper stone and sand to meet New York State specs. So the idea there is the company places that the contractor bears the risk and reward of being able to find those suppliers as long as they meet the standards of the permit and the standards of Northland Power as the investor in the project. The only thing the company will procure directly is the wind turbines. And in this project, we may be procuring some of the electrical substation pieces that will go up along County Road 37 that will tie into the high voltage line. Also worth noting, the site supervisor. So the project, I guess there's also a reference to some type of procurement from Pennsylvania. Just want to emphasize the EPC contractor for Bluestone is the Lesson Group out of Johnstown, New York. If you go down there and talk to people, you will find that almost everybody on that site is from New York State. In fact, many of them are from this area, from Chenango County, Boone County, Delaware County. The site supervisor for the Wesson Group doing that job is from Afton, New York. So it's not the suggestion that the project would be built and we bring on and all these outsiders makes no economic sense whatsoever and doesn't match the exact example and precedent we're setting right now in Boone County. So I do want to emphasize that. And if you guys have additional questions about that, I'd be happy to speak to them. I don't know.
Are you subject to, if a municipality is going to put out a contract like this, we have to have certain minority meeting certain minority business requirements for putting out contracts, or being if you're independent, you don't have to.
Do you know Rob on that?
No, the requirement is related to what the next CCIDA contract is, and it's more about prevailing wage, making sure that you meet the prevailing wage requirement, and less about, but you are required, what you are required to do is, is consider everybody, just like any other contract in the state, is make sure it's equal employment opportunities.
In addition, in the letter we sent to Khoury yesterday, there's been some discussion about the list of parcels involved in the project. Again, I want to emphasize, because we see the taxes that are currently paid on those parcels as continuing, we don't see it as being super relevant to the cost benefit analysis, but in the interest of just providing a complete application, we did add an Exhibit B with the list of real property interests as they exist as of yesterday. Just want to emphasize that we do want to preserve up until the closing with the IDA, we do want to have the opportunity to add additional easements or other parcels. If, for example, a landowner chooses to want to sign a good neighbor agreement, wouldn't want to foreclose that possibility of them being able to benefit from the project. So we do, we added the Exhibit B, and we just want to emphasize that we'd like to be able to add to that list if needed before closing with it. If in fact you guys approve our application before closing with the agency. An additional point that was left as TBD on the application I wanted to touch on is this reference to an phase one environmental site assessment. And I think there's maybe a bit of confusion in the letter received on this point. The phase one is conducted for the benefit of the investor and the co-investor, which in this case would be the IDA, and any debt investor in the project. It is not a public document. It is not a state permitting process. It is an assessment to see if the prior landowners on that project, going back 100 years, if anybody contaminated that land with improper disposal of garbage or waste or anything else that we as the investor need to be mindful of if we start new construction on that project. And so a typical lender on a project like this will require that ESA to be not more than a couple months old. Like, we can't conduct this very expensive ESA now, and then once we start actual physical, we close on the debt financing facility, which we anticipate happening in the spring, we would just have to redo all of that work, really for no particular benefit, because the idea is to provide an assessment as soon as close to construction to confirm that nothing was done on that property to contaminate that property. So we respectfully ask to continue our answer to that question, the application, that we provide that ESA once it's actually completed. We'd like to provide it, obviously, the idea as a co-investor on the project, as being, because once the idea becomes part of the chain of title, obviously I understand why it's in the IDA's interest to see that. Not sure if it's particularly relevant to whether the project, to complete the cost benefit analysis for the project. So that was just my reference on that. I think maybe there's just some confusion about what that document is trying to achieve. Finally, we had left the cost for labor as still TBD. Again, the EPC contractor has, if the EPC contractor is signing an agreement to meet a price and meet a schedule, it's on the EPC contractor's dime if they mess up and choose to accelerate the schedule and add 100% more manpower to site. So, want to emphasize that this is a conservative estimate of what manpower will cost and is subject to change based on conditions on site. But our current estimate for total labor cost of the project is $21 million. Some of the parcels that we work on, some of those parcels are overgrown and have. We just said that we're not asking for any particular. When asked the question, is anything vacant or underutilized, I just said yes, but I'd just like to change that answer to no, just because we're no, that's not our business. I just messed that up. It's just an honest mistake. So, all right.
I think the other thing too, and I can try to explain it and you can jump in because I was given the easy way to explain it. So another question that had come up was about seeker. And we had a conversation with our attorney. I spoke with them actually last night, and in the inducement resolution, the Public Service Commission back in July determined that this was a type 2 project. Because of that determination, they already gave the permit. So we don't need to do, like the town didn't have to do a second seeker. And I know that that's a little different than what we've done in the past with solar projects. Did I explain that one?
Yes.
Oh, So that's why. So I know that came up at a previous meeting and from the opposition group as well. So that's why PCR made that determination.
And if you'd like here, I could address some other, my opinion about other issues raised in the letter, or if that's enough, that's fine.
Do you want to, does the board have any other questions? Or?
Any other questions? Concerns?
Yeah, I'd like to just ask a couple of questions based on the Guilford Coalition's letter. You had mentioned that Northland doesn't flip projects, you hold on to them, you go the distance. How long has Northland been in business as an entity it is today?
Since the
Has it
early,
always been Northland?
Northland Power, yep, always been Northland Power, started out building small gas-fired power plants in the early 1990s, early 80s. So, what is it? Do you remember the exact year? What is it?
34 years.
34 years.
34 years. So one of the concerns is the decommissioning project. This is an imposing project. It's immense. And so do you have standard operating?
Yes.
And are they written and have they been presented to the IDA?
We've been presenting them to Gilbert. We'd be happy to present the IDA if you guys want to see it. So what we were required to do was complete an independent engineer assess the cost to decommission the facility for now, and then they take a view on how much the cost of labor and the cost of everything from landfill tipping fees, labor, cost of any account, and try to come up with an inflation forecast of what that's going to cost at the end of the useful life of the facility. And that inflation forecast forms the basis for what New York State requires us to put as our decommissioning funds. And we need to fund that when we start construction. So what we will do at the time that we start construction, and by the way, that decommissioning projection was reviewed by the Department of Public Service and approved as part of the Article 10 application. So what we were going to be required to do is, as we approach the construction date, we'll coordinate with the town of Guilford, and we will post a letter of credit that's equal to that amount and is good for the 30-year term of the project. And so, but the certificate has a second hook on us, that this certificate being our permit. Every 5 years, we're required to reassess that number in view of inflation trends, and if the number has gone up over time, and like if we can look ahead to end of life and see that, hey, it's not realistic to assume 2% inflation, maybe with all this crazy stuff going on in DC, it's 5% inflation, we will be required to adjust upwards our decommissioning estimate, and then post an increased letter of credit with the town as soon as we complete that updated decommissioning estimate. So in other words, there's a check on us to make sure it's not unrealistic.
Right, and is there an escrow that's set aside? Because it sounds like Northland, do you bear the entire cost of that, or is that subsidized by the state?
No, we bear the cost of that. Yeah. So the letter of credit is basically an irrevocable financial instrument that is there no matter what happens to Northland. It's basically an insurance product guaranteed by a bank. And the town can draw on that if we default on our obligation to decommission. The town draws on that, and they have that money is deposited in their account, and then they can, obviously it would be a horrible scenario because then they would be also managing that outcome, but at least they would have the funds to hire a contractor to take the project to decommission. But it's our responsibility. We are primarily responsible. It is our responsibility to decommission that, and manage that decommission process so that the town is not involved in that. That's just a fallback insurance product.
And our attorneys review that as well, because decommissioning is a requirement for a pilot of this.
And so if you guys want, we can certainly provide the decommissioning estimate we provide to the state, as well as I think we have a little decommissioning plan that details how we
It provides the whole picture.
Yes.
That's why I ask.
Yeah, I can send that.
Are there any exit ramps, so to speak, if this turbine operation isn't operating, like for example, with natural gas, if a well goes dry, then the state requires after a certain amount of years that you not only abandon, but you decommission a natural gas well. Are there any clauses in there where you're expected to generate so much energy And if not, you would have to decommission earlier
Yes.
than the 30 years?
Yeah, the permit has actually a very specific hook in it, which says if a turbine is not generating electricity for, it's either 12 months or 18 months, I don't remember the exact number. If you're unable to get energy out of that after the time period, and I can specify that once I look at it, we're required to decommission that individual turbine. And so it's actually kind of a, from our perspective, we'd like to be able to continue to run the other assets, as long as they go, but the state actually has specific requirements that says, no, you can't have 2 or 3 derelict turbines, even while the others are generating electricity. So we would be at that point required.
So is that like a schedule of efficiencies, I guess you'd say? Is that because if it's windy, you're doing well? And I mean, did they actually spell it out that specifically?
No. They just say, the threshold for the state is if the turbine is not unable to produce electricity, then it must be decommissioned after 12 months or after 18 months of in operation. So we, want to disabuse you guys of the notion that there's going to be anything like, broken turbines standing there for years or something. We're not permitted, under our state permit, we are not permitted to do that.
You said been in business for 34 years. Have you ever decommissioned any operational energy sources?
Did we retire from any of the old gas turbines yet?
I don't know.
If it's, we've definitely cycled through machines on the gas turbine side for sure. Gas turbine typically lasts, 15 to 20 years. So, there's been.
In that case, you're just replacing and maintaining it.
Yeah.
Right. And then just on a different subject, I believe, is there a sales tax exemption for the materials that you buy in Chenango?
Yeah, so basically the project, the turbines are exempt. So the cost to put the turbines up, and to install them and the actual cost of the turbines is tax exempt under New York state law. But there's the balance of plant, specifically the cost that we will bear to construct the roads, foundations. Those are the big ticket items that are subject to our application. We are asking for a sales tax exemption on those items.
So my follow-up question to that is, what's going on in supply chain. It's going to be very difficult to acquire certain materials. You're going to be competing with other entities trying to build roads. And you have the other ancillary things that go along with it, just the construction of something this immense. So what you're doing then is, aren't you competing? And is it in the best interest of the county to have a competition for limited goods? I'm saying it might have some negative effects if you're going to draw so much. You could say you like to buy as local as you can, but then what happens to everybody else who shows up and those shelves are empty? Just a consideration.
Well, I think
We've never had a situation.
What we would do in this case, so like we would go to, we've already actually had conversations with our contractor to begin identifying. It'll take months, but identifying suppliers and saying like, if it's anything like Bluestone, the suppliers are going to have to, if they're going to have to step up, right? They're going to need to hire additional people. It's just like, I know the Khoury we're drawing from in Windsor, right? I think they had like one guy working it on a normal basis. They've now got, a whole bunch of guys they're running, for much of the summer they were running, well into the evening, early in the morning. So we do try to give the suppliers an opportunity to ramp up operations, but it's hard for me to see that as a negative for the county. The idea that more people are employed with these suppliers and,
Right. Well,
they're ramping up production.
yeah, I think what I was trying to illustrate or bring the point is like a double whammy. So you're not only going to clear off the shelves, but we will have the lost sales tax for those who didn't get it, and people are not able to run their operations based on competition for limited goods because of the present supply chain situation.
Mike, one thing else, because I remember back when I-88 was being built, it didn't impact our problems in obtaining materials up in Chenango County.
Right,
As
but
big as I-88 was, that was a gigantic project compared to this. So
Right, but can you compare the supply chain scenario which we have today?
Yeah, it's more or less, you get the big companies like Hanson now that's been this year, so I understand what you're saying. But
Well, what I'm saying is that there's talk about shortages and there's talk about increased costs. So I don't want to see towns
The shortages are
competing.
in, I think, materials you talk about, like gravel, crushed stones, that's not the shortage, because it's generated and made right here.
No, I
That's
understand.
So I don't think that's the issue. The only one I'd be concerned with maybe blacktop. You're not talking a lot of blacktop on these service roads and stuff.
The blacktop would be, we utilize blacktop to repair and upgrade the public roads only. We don't have blacktop on our, so.
So I'm not sure what materials that would impact the local business, the local municipalities. I'm not sure during the construction.
Well, maybe not if you're buying your turbines from out of state, but if there's going to be, you said you spend millions of dollars already locally.
Yeah.
So they could give us a list of what they are. All I'm saying is if you have limited goods and services like we've never seen lately, I just want to know what that impact would be on the residents of the county, that's all. And the lost sales tax. Because now they're not getting it. They're not going to pay because they're not getting the goods, and you would be doing that, and then
Well, that's kind of a strange way to look at it. I mean, if you believe in the capitalist system, right, like these businesses will ramp up. Like, it's not like, if given enough lead time and understanding, every guy's gonna try to make the sale. Like, I guess I don't see the world here in that same way. Like, if I'm a small business owner, and I was just talking with a couple last night here in Chenango, you know, I hope to, you know, send some letters in to support this project, you know, it's not like, I mean, I guess, if you're given 6 or 8 months of lead time,
what would you do about this? All I'm saying is I believe a level playing field, and that's all. If you're not going to be paying sales tax. They are. If you're acquiring these goods and services, then the county takes a sizable loss. Plus, people aren't going to be able to acquire things that may be in short supply. You know, it's not a little hypothetical, but it's not unheard of this day and age.
yeah, I guess our view would be that the county would continue to benefit from the sales tax it's receiving. This would just be additional incremental investment, providing opportunity for capital. I would, that's how we would view it, but understand.
Fair enough. No, I understand your point. Yeah.
Any other questions? What's the next step?
So the next step would be, for you to approve the inducement agreement and the agency agreement. And forward, like I said, the public hearing is next week, and then, you know, between then and the meeting in November, any additional questions or clarifications we would need to get. And then at the November meeting, we would look to propose the final authorizing resolution pending the outcome of the public hearing.
So we need 2 resolutions.
Yes, yeah.
So, could I have a motion for the inducement agreement? So moved.
Zieno, I'm sorry. Zieno, second.
Discussion? We'll vote?
Zieno, aye.
I have to abstain.
Blanchard, aye.
Khoury, aye.
Raymond, aye. And now a motion for the agency agreement.
The agency agreement.
Blanchard, a second. Discussion? Vote?
Zieno, aye.
Gibbon abstain.
Khoury, aye.
Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye.
Thank you. And just a reminder, if you can attend the public hearing next week, or you can watch online, and then we'll talk about it at the next meeting. Thank you. Thank you for attending to answer those questions. Thank you.
All right, new business.
Yep, so just real quick, we are, and I mentioned last month, we are in the middle of the process audit from the state comptroller. He's been here a few days a week for just over a month now. It's going really well. I'm actually finding it's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of extra time for both Carrie Ann and myself to pull documents, and they're looking at all of our pilot agreements, you know, back to, you know, even Norwich Pharma and Cascoon and Chobani and everything we've done since I've been here. But it's been good for us to just get another set of eyes in terms of process. We've done, I think, a good job of, making our processes smoother and having some checklists internally, but by having another set of eyes and just giving some recommendations. So one of the changes that we made today was the cost benefit analysis. Actually verbalizing that and having that as part of our meeting is something that they actually look for. And we've done it unofficially, but we've never had it on the agenda like we did today. So that's just something that we pulled from our discussions with our auditor. So I think that's very helpful. And we'll continue to look to just clarify processes moving forward. But so far it's going very well. So I just wanted to update you that was still ongoing. We are working on the 2022 budget. As I noted, Randy and I met yesterday. I'll be looking at just updating some more things with our administrative services agreement and pulling in the changes happening internally with Commerce. We have 4 different budgets under Commerce, and it's a big job, but we do them sort of all at once. And I usually start with the IDA's budget. So once now that we have direction on that one, I'll fill in the other budgets that we have. We will look to approve our budget for 2022 at the November meeting, and I'll do a short presentation to you in November about that. And then the last thing I just wanted to know was the mission statement and performance goals. So, again, you're gonna love when I go to training, so I'm gonna come back with all sorts of ideas. One of those was taking a look at our mission statement and our performance goals. So that was given to you as part of our packet. We approve this every year at our annual meeting in March. This is something that the ABO office actually requires that we do as an IDA. We have to have performance goals, we have to have a mission statement, and then we have to report back to them about how we are achieving those goals. We have to actually give some data when we report back to the ABO each year. So I wanted to just make this a part of the packet this time. I would love to have a conversation about this, maybe in December. I don't know that the board has actually really delved into this too much, other than just something we approve each year. And I think it's worth at least every couple of years making sure that we take a hard look at what our mission is, how has it changed, do we need to make any adjustments to it, and then even how are we even looking at our own performance and what is it that we want to achieve. So because it looks like November is going to be a pretty busy meeting, I would love if you could maybe think about it a little bit. And then in December, we will delve into this a little bit more and see if we want to make any changes before our annual meeting in March. Do you have any questions about this document?
Just one for you.
Yeah.
The term elevator pitch. That's the first time I've heard the term used. So
Oh, you're looking at the
yeah, I'm looking at the
strategic plan,
it's under goal 1.
Oh, yes, sorry. Sorry. So not to confuse you, this is our strategic plan for commerce, the one that we're working on, and then this is the ABO. But yeah, so if somebody says, what does Commerce Chenango do? What does the IDA do? What does DCC do? Can you say? That's kind of what an elevator pitch is. And it's, that quick conversation, oh, you're on the board, what does that do? What do you do? Are you able to say that? I don't know if some of you can. So yeah, we think it's important that all of our boards have an understanding of what your specific board does and also what Commerce Chenango as a whole does. So, yeah.
That was a new term.
You've never heard that before?
Not an elevator pitch.
Yeah. Okay, and that's all I have.
Engineers don't.
Not
Like
an elevator.
salesmen
The only thing I can tell in elevators is under NCIS. That's what it's the elevator.
All right, any need to go into executive session?
Yes, and depending on the outcome, we may take action after executive session.
Okay. So, your motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Zieno second.
Vote?
Zieno, aye.
Gibbon, aye.
Go ahead.
Blanchard, aye. Raymond, aye.